back. I'm so excited to be back podcasting with you on International Podcast Day. How fortuitous and logical is it that we relaunch Bad Axe Asks on International Podcast Day? I think it makes a lot of sense. What also makes a lot of sense is we are coming back with an awesome guest. Lauren of Mother of Purl fame is going to be joining me. Lauren is a friend of mine that I met in Viroqua. She is a fiber artist, a fashion designer, and all-around wonderful person. And we're going to be chatting about alternative economies for artists and general yarny goodness and community building. Sounds fun? Let's go see her. Welcome, everybody. Episode 5, Bad Axe Asks. I'm here with Lauren of Mother of Purl. She is a friend of mine that I met in Viroqua. We both have shared interest in fiber arts and knitting and creative business ownership and stuff like that. So she agreed to hang with me and answer a bunch of pestery questions about what it is to be a maker and a business owner. So to start, for people who don't necessarily know, Lauren designs patterns and spins her own yarn. So she goes straight from fleece to garment. She has the whole process that she does in-house for a lot of her designs and works with all these different interesting natural fibers, which if you're not a nerd like me, maybe you don't know that much about sheep and different fibers and stuff like that. So layman's terms, sheep, woolly, cut it off, process it, spin it on a spinning wheel, and knit like she's knitting right now. So, Lauren, what makes you most passionate about what you do as a knitwear designer?
I really love to do processes from start to finish. So when I first started knitting, I started knitting first. So I learned to spin after I learned how to knit, and it was very shortly after I learned how to knit that I decided I wanted to take it another step further and make the yarn. So I started knitting in 2012 and got really, really into it. I was using a lot of yarn, and then I was like, well, yarn has to come from somewhere. So I want to make it. And then I just kind of dove in and I bought a bottom whirl drop spindle, and then I started teaching myself how to make yarn, and that was in 2016.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I just got really, really into that, and I had some friends who have sheep, and they gifted me with some fleeces, so I was able to go from fleece to finished product, and that's just it's really fulfilling to me. I feel very accomplished, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Not that like my worth is based on what I can do in the world, but I feel good about myself when I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in like for me, like I'm very interested in fashion design and textile design and things like that. So in a world where we are so disconnected from like that origin of garments, to me, and I spin a little bit too, not nearly as prolifically as Laura does, but to me, it's the same thing. It's kind of like this feeling of like you're in control of all these different steps, and that feels like very satisfying. Like just knowing that you're like, I did all of this.
Yeah, totally. And I also love that the fibers, like I know where they came from, and I can feel good about like the animals and the lives that they're living, and also be able to create something that I can use for many, many years to come. That feels
So
good.
it's like ultimate control of ethics when you get to go out and like hang out with the sheep and be like, hi Bob, I'm gonna make a sweater out of you, your fleece, not you specifically.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, like, I have a separate Instagram account where I basically just rant about buying secondhand everything and or making things and using that kind of thrifted, but not necessarily because of financial needs, just economic, ethical needs, that kind of thing,
Hmm.
which I find a weird balance between, because there are a lot of really awesome makers and sustainable brands that are, popping up now or that have been around for a long time that are kind of coming to the forefront as people stray away from fast fashion towards a more sustainable future.
Hmm.
My thing that I struggle with is, how do you balance what's already existing in the world and what's being produced?
Yeah.
So for you, you are a creative who monetizes your passion in some ways. And how do you find that as an experience? So what are some of the challenges that you're working towards overcoming regarding getting paid as a creative?
Yeah, I don't think I'm alone as an artist and trying to figure out how to get paid for the work because it is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely struggle. I have found that like diversifying my income streams has been very helpful. So I write patterns, which takes a lot of work up front, but then once they're released, that is kind of like a passive income.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do hand spun yarn. So that's also like a lot of work up front, but but then it can just, be there.
It's not
And
going to
then,
expire.
right, exactly. And then I also teach classes. Um, I do like affiliate marketing,
Mm-hmm.
social media, content creation. I also have a Patreon. So, like, diversifying my income streams between passive and active income has been helpful in getting like income that feels regular. Like, it's not regular, but
Right.
it feels a little bit more like, oh, I have my Patreon. People are subscribed to my Patreon. I'm going to be able to pay the water bill this month. Like that's
Mm-hmm. That's
that's taken care of. So, but pricing for what I make, it has been very difficult, and I go like back and forth with it all the time. Honestly, it changes quite a bit. Um, I I just like tweak it until I feel good with it that day. And then next week I might be like, oh, I'm not really paying myself for my work. Like
mm-hmm.
that's not going to work. So I change it. And so I have a couple different strategies. Like my patterns are more like what the market
Oh,
is demanding.
yeah.
I'm trying to be competitive in the pattern market because there are a lot of other knitwear designers
Mm-hmm.
out there who sell patterns. So I want to be, in that same range.
Mm-hmm.
But I am also offering something that is somewhat different, which I offer pattern support as well. So that's a lot of work, like on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So am I paying myself for that? I don't really know. Right now, I feel comfortable with it. How that evolves, I don't know. And then my yarn is priced competitively, but then I offer like sliding scale for commissions,
Okay.
um, which yeah, I can talk about more in
Yeah.
the like we can go more in depth with that. But I want to be able to make it accessible to people who don't have as much access to capital,
Mm-hmm.
while also allowing people who do have disposable income to choose to support that. So I have a couple different payment models for like all the all the things.
And that's really interesting to me too, because I've seen more and more of that kind of like sliding scale payment popping up, not just in like the service world, where I think that's been a little bit more prevalent previously,
Mm,
but seeing it in the artistic creative world. I offered a couple workshops at the beginning of quarantine that were for free, but pay if you can. And
mm-hmm,
that was amazing because I know on that one for sure, I netted more than if I would have
mm,
charged everybody a flat rate. And
interesting.
more people were able to access it, which I felt really good about. So again, like kind of
Mm-hmm,
that self-worth, aligning with your own values, because that's, I mean, some of the sliding scale stuff goes against like every pricing and marketing model that, traditional model of like how to pay yourself. You
yep.
take that in a business plan, like, I want to give everybody yarn, they're going to be like, no, you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Hmm. That is for sure. And I have run into a couple of difficulties with that, but
Yeah.
right now I feel good about it. I'll consider that for my classes. Like I'm not able to do like a totally choose your own price with the
Yeah.
platform that I'm using for my classes, but I do have like,
Mm-hmm.
they're not tiers, but they're like, you can pay this much, you can pay more than what I'm charging for the course itself, and then that will sponsor someone else to get in.
Right.
Um, and then like I also have payment plans as well. So I try to offer like a different option for different people. But
And
yeah,
that's,
it is difficult.
and I know, I mean, like that has to be tricky too, because you are definitely a person who values community building in a way of like, if you're able to help others, you do with whatever skills you have.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I know I feel this myself too. I'm like, oh, like you see something, you see a way that like, oh, I could be of service in this way. I could just do it for free. But then you're also like a very strong advocate for creative makers and independent artists to get paid as an alternative to a traditional economic model. So it's, yeah, finding that middle ground. You mentioned Patreon. Have you found any other tools or methodologies that are kind of like key disruptors to those typical issues of getting paid as a maker, like how to get paid
Mm-hmm.
for creative work? What do you find most helpful for that?
Yeah, the Patreon is definitely a large part of that. It allows me, like I said, to have somewhat of a stable income. Before I had the Patreon, it was really like, okay, I'm rushing to create new content, like get a new pattern out there, get more interest, get people excited about something. And then if people didn't like it,
Right.
it was just like I made nothing that month,
Yeah.
or like for 2 months, or however long it was taking to make a pattern, and putting all of that energy into it. So the Patreon has definitely been, what's the word, helpful
Yeah.
in in that way. Um, and the sliding scale as well is which we have been talking about. So what I do is I offer like so I'm charging per yard on
Mm-hmm.
my commissions, and I'm doing like a pretty large sliding scale. So I do 10 cents per yard and 30 cents per yard. And
Okay.
then I offer like a bracket
Okay.
of, this is the low amount and I feel totally comfortable, like materials are paid for.
Mhm.
And then like the 10 cents per yard or 30 cents per yard is on top of materials.
Okay.
So I feel totally comfortable with the low end of the scale, and like people can pay
Right.
whatever they want over that.
Okay.
But I have found that it's difficult to explain to people that model, especially if they've never heard of sliding scale before.
Mm-hmm.
I found that people really just want you to tell them what to pay you. And um, yeah, and I just, something about it just doesn't feel it just doesn't feel right to be like, you must pay me this amount, because like there's varying degrees of skill involved in all sorts of things that I make. So yeah, so I usually cap it at 30 because people want like something concrete. It makes people uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah.
Or in my experience, it has. So I am still figuring out how to explain it to people. But you're right, it is somewhat of a, I kind of have cognitive dissonance about it. Where dissonance, did I say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's back up a sentence,
Right.
eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
So I do kind of have cognitive dissonance about getting paid, where I feel like I want to offer what I have to offer to the world, and just say like, oh, whatever comes to me will be the true
Will be enough. Right.
value.
Yeah.
And I want that to be the way that things are, but in reality, I do still have to pay like bills, real bills, with real money. And it's kind of like an exploitation. I'm looking at it through the lens of exploitation. Like capitalism exploits labor, and that's why labor and resources. And that's why certain things like fast fashion that we were talking about before are so cheap, because it's exploitative. And so I'm really trying not to exploit myself and my own labor by getting paid a fair price. Right. So yeah, that's where the cognitive dissonance comes in. Like, I want to offer this for free and be able to like trade with you, which I do some trading and some bartering for services as well. That's another like disruptor. Whoop, side note.
Disruptors.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but it's gone now. I think I made the point.
Yeah. Having different avenues, and that's something like for me, like I'm always thinking about like, we are in a capitalistic society. We do exist within the confines of a system that is, I mean, like you were saying, fast fashion is a great example of that. It is very exploitative. And I think about that. I mean, even for my own self, I'm not sewing. I'm not making garments. I'm not doing that. But still, like, there are moments where I'm like, oh, I should just be serving for free. I should just be doing this for free. And when that is not born out of like a sense of love for the people that I'm serving, when I'm just like, well, I should, because I don't deserve the money because I'm not educated enough, or I don't deserve that kind of a thing, that's where I have to go, okay, you need to stop, to myself. That's my own personal struggle with the cognitive dissonance of like, I need to pay bills, and I desire to also demonstrate an alternative to that kind of system. And that's, I mean, for me, what I hope to do is like, I want my services to be something that's different than somebody just going to an ad agency, or somebody just paying Facebook ads or something like that, where, you are the difference between somebody buying a cardigan at Target, or just purchasing something, maybe they'll learn a new skill. They see one of your garments, they want to learn to knit. Empowerment on different levels.
Yeah.
In different ways.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that you're accomplishing that.
Aww.
So.
It's hard. And I think, I mean, like, this is like a total aside, that I'm curious about a lot of it, I was raised by two entrepreneurs. My parents both own their own businesses. So the fact, like, when I was a kid and would go to school and people would talk about like their parents not being able to take time off work, I was like, don't they just leave? You know what I mean? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
sick time.
Yeah.
Don't they just leave? Like if they don't feel good, they just leave. But like if you get sick, they just come home and take care of you. Like why does that, you know? So having that upbringing and like that steep learning curve of like this is not everybody's reality.
Yeah.
And then like becoming an adult and being like, but what if it could be?
Yeah. Yeah. I had wanted to, make a living off of my art for a long time, like probably since I was creating like as a child. Like I
Oh yeah.
wanted to be an artist, but I had no, like, until I met my partner who started his own business. I did not have like the context of like, oh, I could start my own, I could do that.
This is a path that's open to me.
Yeah, I really just was telling myself all the time, like, no, I can't do that. I have to just like work a job, and
Right.
that's the only thing I can do. And I can do this on the side and be happy with that. But like once I took the leap, I amazed myself.
Yeah. Well, and it's even ridiculous to me, like thinking back on like my own business journey. Even in the beginning, like I had set up an LLC and I was still like, this is pretend.
Thinking about, I don't know if this is like too heavy for the podcast, so you just like edit it out if you want.
Go for it. Go for it.
Thinking about capital, and the capital that this country was built on was like my ancestors' free labor, and like, and their bodies, like literally the capital was the beings like of stolen Africans. And so when I think about paying myself, it's like I'd be doing a disservice, or I'd be dishonoring my ancestors by not being paid and just doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also like wanting to look into the future, and like you said, providing that alternative for the way that things could be. So there's not only a cognitive dissonance about getting paid a fair amount,
Right.
it's like getting paid at all, like, and the balance between what happened in the past and like how things were set up for me in this lifetime based on the past, and also what we want to be looking towards in the future. Because we don't have to do things the way that they've always been done. And capitalism actually isn't really that old. Like before there was capitalism, there was slavery, which is like basically, when slavery was abolished, they had to exploit someone. And it ended up being like, or it didn't end up like, it's not the end of the world yet, but prison labor is still exploited. Resources from the earth are still exploited. So it's just, yeah.
Yes, when people make sort of statements of solidarity or statements of, wanting change, like, good, commit to that, do your homework, be aware what's gonna happen though, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
You're gonna have to pay someone to make your clothes that's not a slave. No more $4.99 dress from H&M. Like,
right.
Deal.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's a global world, and when people view a movement as being localized, and like, you can't. Not that. I mean, this pandemic shows it. Like,
right.
Everything's connected.
Absolutely. I do want to say, though, I think I misspoke when I said that slavery was abolished, because it wasn't. It was actually just reformed. And now we have the prison industrial complex. And that provides a lot of free labor for products, including clothing. So yeah, when we're talking about we have to pay people for their labor if we want to be in solidarity with the movement. Yeah, it's like all around. There's all those pieces, like you were saying. So
yeah.
Hmm.
There's a possibility. There's a future. It's totally like the world hasn't ended yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not yet. Back to, talking about for yourself, kind of making some sort of, the balance between like creative inspiration, having, your muse and your passion and doing that work, and also having some sort of level of sustainability in terms of income. You had mentioned, doing work, designing a pattern, putting it out, and then maybe it's not received well by the community that likes your work or that would purchase your work. So maybe that's a huge indicator, and I'm sure a partial answer to the question I'm about to ask. But what role for you and in your business does community and feedback play into your creative process? And kind of as a side question, do you find the kind of collaborative nature between maker and consumer to be really inspirational to you? Like, do you find that sort of collaboration cool and inspiring, or do you find it sometimes as like a hurdle or something that drags down your creative process?
Yeah, so I would say yes to community, and somewhat to like feedback. So the reason I say somewhat for feedback is because I love like polling the people who interact with my work. See, if I have two options on like buttons or something,
right,
like asking people what they think it is really fun for me. And also like the collective mind around naming things. I love to ask the people who interact with my work, like, what kinds of feelings does this color evoke for you,
okay,
or this garment? Like, what kind of vibes are you getting? And then I kind of play like word association with that. So everything that all the feedback that I'm getting does definitely play a role in my art, but it's within my like creative vision. So mostly I have like the thing that I want to make, and then within that there's room for collaboration. And I also like to collaborate with different people in similar fields.
Okay.
Like right now I'm collaborating with an indie dyer who, like May from La Francis Handmade, they dyed the yarn for a pattern that I'm producing. So we're bringing like two spheres, or two halves of a sphere, right? and putting them together to collaborate on that. And I like, I guess it would be like contracting, I guess, with other, especially BIPOC owned businesses and creators, to make something different and out of the box than what I would usually do on my own. And I love like the community that has been built around social media. There's so much information out there. Like whenever I go on live, I'm always like learning something new from someone else's perspective, and I love that. Or I'll host a Q&A or something, and someone will ask a question, but I didn't quite get to it because the comments are going, and then somebody else will come in and like answer that question. So I love that community knowledge and sharing. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what social media has done for the community. Is like
But the collective like just totally loses all boundaries with,
yes,
with
exactly.
the internet, which is to me like, I mean, I'm a huge I'm if you've been around here for a minute, I'm very anti-academic establishment, as you may have guessed. I'm a fiercely proud college dropout. I see value in education. I think education is the most powerful tool we have in any industry, for any topic, for any reason. You can educate yourself. We have so much free information. Ignorance is not an option anymore, which I think we're at such an awesome part in human history because of that. You know, it used to be that knowledge was held captive for a select few, and now you can learn how to go do whatever you want. Rewind a garage door spring. I've done that. Don't. It's super dangerous, but also like you can learn it on YouTube. But you know, like that sort of freedom of information and knowledge has been hugely impactful for my business because I can learn from other people's mistakes, successes. My own mistakes are on display for everybody to see, which I find very liberating because I know how much I've learned from other people's mistakes. So I like love that about, and a lot of people hate it, but I love the availability of information and how game changing it is for literally every single person on the planet. And like, nerd, like that's like social media is huge, and there are so many downsides to it, but there are so many good sides to it. Like, I mean, like you're talking about, I'm sure your business, like, can you imagine how different it would be without being able to build that community?
Yeah, can I imagine that? You know, I think it would be smaller. It would be smaller in scale, right? And it would be different. Yeah. I mean, like, can I point to exact differences? No, because I do collaborate with people who are local to me as well, like with sourcing the wool. And we have an awesome local yarn store and fiber mill here in Viroqua area. So I think I would be doing a lot more collaborating on a small scale. But yeah, like in terms of access to like other BIPOC makers, I don't know how I would even, like, other than within my own family, like I don't personally know, like, met in person at like a fiber event, like yeah, the internet has really brought us together in a big way.
And I think that's just like, that's so beautiful, like super like sappy, cheesy emotion.
I have found a lot of great community, and I think that, where was I going with that? It was something along the lines of, I've chosen to live in a really rural area so that so my whole business is basically like, it's dependent on the internet. I guess not my whole business because I do commissions locally, but a huge part of my business, pattern sales, yarn, is online based. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what direction I would have taken. I think
I'm sure you would have figured something out though, but
I'm sure I would have. But like, would my mistakes, like you were talking about your mistakes earlier and learning from your mistakes, would I have learned from my mistakes in a different way? Like, would I have taken a different route And would they have been mistakes in the first place? Like
Oh.
when I was trying to do art shows and stuff, like if things were much more local, would, you know, I don't know, would I have sold more finished product than ideas, I guess, because I'm in the business of selling the idea of making something. So I don't know. That's an interesting thought experiment, though.
What has been the most fun way to connect with your community, the fiber loving community? What's been your favorite method for that? The one that sparks the most joy?
I think teaching classes. There's something about people who really want to learn a skill or like inspired, like they have that new energy. They wanna get started on the journey. And I feel like I don't know if this is the right word or not, but like I feel kind of like mischievous. Like I'm like, ooh, come into the world of fiber arts and do the things. We have you forever now.
One of us.
Yeah, exactly. And I learn new things every time I teach. Like because
new way to hold needles. See that.
And I get better at teaching every time I do it, and better at explaining.
It's hard
because different things click for different people. So
right. Well, I think I am out of questions. Thank you so much for joining and playing along. If you guys want to learn more about Lauren's fiber adventures, you should definitely go to her website, motherofpurl.net. You can find all her patterns. You can find her hand-spun yarn. She has a lovely blog. She writes about some of her design experiences, things like that. Great resource if you want to dive into the world of fiber arts. She is your girl. One-stop shop. Sheep to sweater. And she just had you had a fleece to garment class, right? So lots of opportunities for learning and developing your own skill set for this post-apocalyptic world.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm gonna edit this part out. Seriously, I'm not gonna put it on.